and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. As you all can see, I have with me Major General C. Money on his second interview with Dev Talks. With vast experience in the Indian Army, he's also a master in telecommunication systems. And today he's going to talk about fourth generation warfare. This is something very, very new that is happening around us. It is a whole new era of war fighting that we can see. And I'm sure all of you will understand when you analyze the Ukraine crisis, which is actually taking place as we speak right now. It's a mix of all sorts of things which is happening in that region. For us to understand this new age and new era of warfare, it is important that we learn and then we try and analyze how India can actually prepare itself for this showdown, if I may put it that way. Thank you, sir, for joining me for this discussion on fourth generation warfare.
Thanks, Adi. Always a pleasure to be on your channel. And I can see that your channel is getting a lot of traction day by day. And for you also, everybody loves a crisis. So your channel is doing well when there's a crisis on our head. So taking off from our last session, actually something saved me last time was when I started with that Sanskrit invocation. So I'll again start with that because some friends didn't like what I spoke. So, but they took it because of the Sanskrit invocation part, which is Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunatu, Sahaviryam Karvavahi, Tejas Vinavadita Mastu, Ma Vid Vishabhahi. That means let us discuss with vigor, vitality, and let us mutually learn from each other. So that will be a fruitful discussion for us.
Absolutely, sir. That is what the whole reason of this channel is, so that we can understand the various aspects of geopolitics as well as warfare which is taking place. Sans the rhetoric which is flying around the place. And I try my best not to fall trap for the information warfare which is around the place.
True.
So just to begin the discussion, warfare, as we know, has changed, dramatically over the past time. We hear, system-based warfare. We hear information warfare. Just mentioned. There's so many different kinds of, war fighting methods that have come out, from sticks and stones to now, the whole different era. How do you kind of describe the changes that has taken place, and just a gist so that we can, make build up the discussion on that?
Yeah. Mankind has always longed for peace. That's why our Upanishad also says Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Everything finishes with Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So everybody should be at peace. But it doesn't work out that way, unfortunately. From 3500 BC, there has been only 300 years of peace. All these other years, the world has been at war. So that is the reality. And war is more or less has become a natural state of existence. You may like it or not. There are a lot of liberals among us who feel that war should be outlawed and all that. But that is the state. That is what it is. And war is only after World War I, when they saw the massive misery, that people decided, okay, let us try to at least regulate it. That's why the League of Nations came up. Then after World War II, we had the United Nations coming up, the Geneva Conventions for treatment of prisoners of war, and so on. So, and war itself, there has been a kind of a feeling of inevitability to it. So there are some people who feel that it is like, it is a karma thing, like there are four horsemen, apocalypse. Like how is the population kept under control? Population is kept under control by war, by famine, and by natural disasters. So these are the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and death, natural death. But war is one of them. So it is taken that war is inevitable, and it's like the collective karma of a nation also. Even Buddhism talks of a collective karma. Jews also. Israel is that it's the price of the neighborhood here. So there is that aspect of war that it is it is a karma. Like Gandhi was peace loving, Nehru was peace loving, but the neighborhood didn't allow him to be at peace. So that is one aspect of war which is there. And the second aspect of war is why people go to war is. There is a moral reason for it. They want, there is certain traditions have a savior, a messiah who comes and takes you, from darkness to light. So that is another basis. So that is where all the jihad come, the crusades come. This is the another reason that means good will vanquish evil. Even Hinduism talks of it. Yada yada dharmasya glane bhavati bharat. At that time, an avatar will come when the evil rises beyond all. So even we have that concept. So that there is another, that is the another basis for war, is a moral kind of a war. That war can set right things. Okay, so this is the why wars take place. But then the third is a rational basis for war. There's a rational basis. That is, it is politics. Like Clausewitz said, it is politics by other means is war. And now the way it is going about is policy is war by other means. So if your policy can do what war can do, so we need not get into violence. So this is the basis of how war, actually the condition of war as far as humans are concerned. Generations of war, if you look at generations of war, by the Western definitions, it was only in 1648 that the first generation of war, they say, started. 1648 was the Treaty of Westphalia, when nations actually, there was the treaty, and they had nations had boundaries. So these boundaries had to be guarded. So that's why that is when they distinguished themselves from the previous unorganized, militant hordes, which were lawless hordes. So they said, okay, this is the state, this is the government or the monarchy, and this is the army. So all three should be distinguished. So that's why you had that is the first generation, when the army had uniforms. They had drills, they had ceremonies, and that was a time when it was the technology also was such. We had smoothbore muskets, so people drilled, and it was massing of populations which took place. So this was the first generation of war, and this lasted till it covered also Napoleon. So it lasted till about 1860. This is the first generation. And in 1861, what happened was the first, the machine gun, the Gatling machine gun came. This is electrically operated. Then gas operated and recoil operated machine guns came later. Maxim, they came in 1880 or so. So they kind of revolutionized warfare and started the second generation of war. The biggest example of the second generation of war is World War I, where we had machine guns, we had barbed wire, we had trenches, we had a linear battlefield, and at every time you linearly moved ahead. And it was like the whole of war was like a grand symphony. The commander was the overall commander, theater commander was like a conductor of a symphony. And the rest of units, formations are all like pawns. So he used to play, say, today this will happen. Those kind of things is to, that particular unit is to be pushed forward. So the life did not have any value in that thing. And at this time, most important was obedience and discipline. That is what was looked for. At that time, you could not say, I will not do this. So obedience and discipline was what was drilled into people. This was in the second generation of war, because it required, that's why the drills came in. Blow a whistle, people don't think, you just start. That is why the battle drills and all that. So that is how the second generation of war started. Then we have something which happened in 1903, was the Wilbur Wright, and Orville Wright, when they came up with the aircraft. Okay, so then they found the air domain started taking importance. And again, at the same time, around 1901 was when Marconi first had the transatlantic wireless communication. Yeah. So these were all significant, because what is happening now is a different domain of war was emerging. So far as only land and sea battles took place. But with Wilbur Wright and Orville Wright, introducing the air domain, then World War II saw a significant change when air became the Battle of Britain was a completely air battle. Blitzkrieg used air, tanks, maneuver warfare. So this is when the third generation warfare, you can say, started around this time, when you had, the aim was that you encircle an enemy. You encircle the enemy, you don't directly get to grips with them. Whereas in the second generation warfare, you directly got to grips with the enemy. Because you went trench to trench, hand to hand, bayonets, everything was going on. Here, you just avoid all these strong points, encircle him, cut off all his avenues of escape, give him decision dilemmas, and finally he surrenders. It's like making a siege sort of a thing. So this was the third generation of war. And around the same time, during World War II, a very important thing which took place was there was an Enigma machine. Anybody who's seen the movie Imitation Game will know about this. In that, the Enigma machine was captured by the Polish underground and given to the British. These used to send messages, encoded messages. The Germans used to send encoded messages for controlling the U-boats, which used to attack the shipping convoys in the Atlantic. So all these messages went by using this Enigma machine. The code was changed every night, midnight. The first message was received at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it had to be decoded before midnight to know where the next attack is going to take place. So this was a challenge which the British faced. So that is when what they did was they got all the cryptographers and all the mathematicians of England together. They said, you guys break this. So that was when Alan Turing, he's called the father of modern computing. So he realized that, he says a human being can never break, because there were 18 followed by 20 zeros combinations. He says if all the cryptographers, if the whole population of England sits down and starts working out one code, tries out one code, then we're not going to break it in 18 hours. He says only what can break this code is another machine. So he created a machine, and that machine was what is a forerunner of our modern computers. So that is where the computing came, and that is where this is what the next domain started emerging at this point. Electromagnetic domain came, Marconi, and this computing domain also has started coming up. This is how the generations of war keep evolving. And I'll say the acme of third generation war, of maneuver and everything, was done in 1991, Desert Storm, when Saddam Hussein was they didn't really get to grips with him. They had just 52 casualties. The US Allied forces, they had just had 52 casualties, and Saddam Hussein just crumbled because they firstly dominated the electromagnetic spectrum. They jammed everything moving, and then when the ground troops went in through multi directions, nothing. He just straight away succumbed. So that was maneuver warfare at the acme of it, and so this was third generation war. You can say acme of it. So then, by that time, something else happened. By that time, computing came, communications came. They both converged onto in one platform. So the information revolution started. The beauty of the information revolution was that so far, whatever warfare was doing was it was amplifying the power of the human muscle. Okay, the human muscle was being amplified. So that means one machine could do what 100 people could do, 1,000 people could do physically. Okay, but since Alan Turing, he amplified the power of the human mind, because thousands of minds could not do, one computer could do. So with this thing coming down, so that means the mind, when they realized that, and ultimately what was maneuver warfare doing? Why did Saddam Hussein give up? Because his mind got affected by the maneuver. So then they said, why get into violence if I can affect somebody's mind directly? And the information revolution gave me ample avenues for doing this. Okay, so that is when the fourth generation war, you can say, that kicked off at that point, when they said, let us not use only violence, let us use all the other means so that we affect the mind of the leader. So to summarize, we can say that if there's a boxing bout, okay, for the four generations of war, like in the first generation of war, like I said, it was mass on mass. So it was just like one guy is trying to push the other guy out of the ring. So that is the first generation. The second generation is attrition. They're both hitting each other, pummeling each other, and finally one guy gives up. He's hurt. So that is second generation of war. And now the third generation of war is that guy dances around the ring. He doesn't get to grips with him. He dances around the ring and he pins him down. That is third generation. But in the fourth generation of war, that is what America faced in Iraq and Afghanistan and all. The fourth generation of war is that the two people are fighting. One of them is too superior compared to the other person, and it's like a David versus Goliath thing going on. David is getting beaten up, but at the same time, David is the aim is not Goliath being losing. The aim is that the people watching the contest, how do they react? His aim is to win the sympathy of the people watching the contest. So Goliath is in a no-win situation now. If he beats up David, कहता you're a bully, you're a child killer, you're a baby killer. If he beats him up, and if he loses to him, you're an idiot. So he says he can't win either way. So that's what happened to them in Vietnam also. Vietnam war veterans used to go back to the US, go back home, and they used to be called baby killers. And at the end of Vietnam, one of the colonels, Colonel Summers, he told his counterpart in the North Vietnamese army, he told him, you see, you never defeated us on the battlefield. He says, yes, that's right. You never defeated us on the battlefield, but it does not matter. It is irrelevant because you lost the war. We lost the war of the narrative. We lost the war of the mind. So that is where the fourth generation war, is. It has become a defining thing wherever there's an overmatched adversary. So it is very good for a person who's a weaker opponent to fight this war. So that is what has developed. And actually, this concept was given by William Lind, who was a U.S. Marine Corps general. So his pamphlet was found in the caves of Tora Bora also. That means even the Taliban were reading this pamphlet. Okay, so that's how they fine-tune their tactics against how to defeat the Americans. Yeah.
Interesting. So how times have changed, and today they talk about winning a war without firing a shot. So that's something. And when you were talking about guns, good old saying came to mind, and that's something that can tell you the beginning of probably a narrative war. They say that God created all men, but Samuel Colt made them all equal. This was in the Wild West. So, this was a war of narratives actually during those days when they were talking about the best weapons that could be, and during the American Civil War. So coming to the present day, what's happening in Ukraine today is very interesting. Although the apathy of war, keeping that aside, it's a very interesting example of how modern warfare will be fought. There is information flying around all through the networks. When one switches on a particular channel from a particular country, there's a certain narrative. When we switch on the other channel from another country, there's a certain narrative. If you look at Twitter, it's filled up with probably fake or non-fake news. As a matter of fact, a couple of days yesterday, there was a news that President Zelensky has, fled the country. And in the evening, Pochap had to put out a video standing in front of his parliament saying, "I'm still here. Don't talk about stuff like that." So it's basically a war of narratives as well as the military interdiction of whatever kind is happening. What are the kind of tactics that you see which are new that you can see within this military conflict between both these countries, sir?
Okay. I think you would be more, you are actually better informed because you have done so many interviews on experts with people in Ukraine. So I just want to give a slightly different perspective to this whole conflict. So I'll just share my screen. Okay. So this is the globe. Okay. So if you look at it, I'm just putting it in context, in geopolitical context. If you look at it, there are 71% of it is ocean, and balance of it is land. But if you see, there is a part here which is like an island actually. This is the center you can look at. Okay, so this is the pivot actually. This is a pivot. Okay, so this is called the world island. This is the Black Sea where all this thing is taking place. Okay, and this is, I'll say, Taiwan, this area. Okay, not here. Sorry.
A little further northwest, sir. Northeast.
Yeah, correct.
A little further northeast.
So somewhere here. Yeah, somewhere here. So this is this is to put this in perspective. So this is what is the it's called the heartland area. This is the heart of the earth. Okay. So in geopolitics, there are different theories which talk about it. Around the heartland is a rimland, which is all these things which are skirting the seas, Arabia, Iran, India, China. These are all the rimland countries. Okay, all the ancient civilizations came along this rimland. And so there is that's why there's an inner crescent and an outer crescent. Okay, and the heartland. Now, there are two opposing theories for this whole thing. One of the theories says that it is again depending on which side of the debate you are on. if you're a naval person, you will say, see, 71% is water. So I must, if I control the water, I control the world. But there are other guys who say, no, if you control the heartland, because that is where people live, that is where the resources are. So that is what has to be controlled. Now you look at this. So this is the heartland, which has got all the resources. And if you see China, what they did immediately after the center of this heartland is Urumqi. Urumqi is the capital of Xinjiang. And so that is the center. The first thing they did after that, the communist revolution, was within a few months, they had gone and occupied Xinjiang. So you can see that thought process. That is because that is where all the minerals are. This is the Central Asian republics. All the minerals, all the wealth is concentrated in these areas. Okay, and so all the Central Asian republics and this heartland, this is the things, as per one of the theories, this is a thing worth fighting for. Now, if you look at the geopolitics, the way it is happening, is Russia and China are joining up. They are not maritime nations, basically. They are both continental nations. And they are, look at the way they're hooking up all across this. As a result, tell me, what kind of a policy will Central Asian republics follow, where all the resources are? So if you look at it geopolitically, so this is a move so far, because the United Kingdom, USA, they're all maritime nations. See the alliances they have. North Atlantic, this Atlantic Treaty Alliance. So they're looking at guarding the North Atlantic Ocean. Then they look at Quad, is the Indo-Pacific Ocean. So Quad again is all of Japan, India, and Australia, USA. I mean, this is all. So these are all ocean, facing, and that is the basic thrust of the Western Alliance to control the oceans. Whereas look at what China and Russia are doing. They are looking at the landmass as such, his CPEC, and the way China is going about it, the connectivity they're doing. So all this shows that the game is not. These are just the edges of it. Now, if I'm a superpower, if I'm the USA, and if my attention is diverted here in the Black Sea, Crimean Peninsula, and something happens in this corner, 9,000 kilometers away, so what am I going to do? Okay, so I think that is the thing. And the US is not basically a continental nation; it's a maritime nation. So that is the issue, and that is what this alliance is speaking of. Now, Pakistan has inserted itself into this. What was Imran Khan doing yesterday there in Russia? So because Pakistan's contribution is important, because Pakistan it is actually the revenge of geography. Pakistan is blessed by geography and it is cursed by history. So that is the revenge they exact. Because of its geographical location, you can't do anything without Pakistan. China needs Pakistan to get access to the Central Asian republics. It can't. There's no other way. It has to go to Afghanistan. Afghanistan has to go through Pakistan. So that's how it works. So this is I think a major geopolitical challenge which the West is facing. And they know what's happening. They don't want to get sucked into it. You look at presently in Ukraine, they're left to their own devices. And there's a second challenge which which especially affects us, is that China is watching that how are you helping? Let's say you don't have they're a non-NATO, they're not a NATO member, Ukraine. So that is one of the reasons they're saying, so there is no response, only sanctions there's no military response. But the question is, it is all a kind of a blueprint for what will happen in case he hits it to Taiwan. And to just give you the next perspective, this is the entry to the heartland is through, this is Kyiv, this is Moscow. This is the Black Sea, this is Crimean Peninsula. And the entry is through the steppes. So if the West has to enter, they have to enter through these steppes into this heartland. So this was something 1903. Mackindor's theory that I'm talking of. This is a heartland theory. So this is what has been espoused by him, that a control has to start from here. So this is, you could say, one of the geopolitical reasons for what Russia is doing is because this is a breadbasket. This has got everything. It has got everything there, because all the steppes and all the very fertile areas. They got minerals, they got oil, they got gas, they got everything there. So that is the geopolitical perspective which the West is up against, and we need to take note of that. Now, specific to the question that you asked, in this context, so Russia is throwing everything it has. Firstly, the Eastern republics, you can say it was 4G warfare because they created a cause, they created a narrative, they put in their saboteurs inside, and they declared independence. It's a classic playbook of it has happened in the Middle East also. You have a dictator, then the people rise up and revolt against him, and then after that, saboteurs are infiltrated into it, and they throw him out, and then either he comes on heavily or he so either way that guy loses credibility. So this is something which that playbook they followed in the Eastern republics. Now, as far as the actual, if you look at what they're doing today and yesterday, what they have done, it is classic maneuver warfare. They come from the north, they come from the east, they come from the south. So what they have done, they have cut all the options. And in maneuver warfare, the aim is to identify centers of gravity of the enemy, which they have done beautifully. They identified that these are the cities: Kiev, Kharkiv, the Hostomel, the airport, 11 airports they have occupied. And critical center of gravity they took was Chernobyl. It is a very important objective, because it had the potential of introducing the nuclear factor. Because in case, let's say, a random shell had, that is what Ukraine was telling people. This is if something happens to Chernobyl, it's not you guys are left me to my own devices, but if something happens here, whole of Europe is going to come under radiation threat. Okay, so please help me. So that's what. So that was the narrative that Ukraine was playing. So one of the first objective was taking over Chernobyl. So it is again a center of gravity for them. It's a very important center of gravity from very many other perspectives. So that was classic 3G warfare. Now, from the Ukraine perspective, he's David getting beaten up by Russia. Okay, he is in the ring. He's looking at the audience. The audience is saying, okay, we are sympathetic to you, but not really. They're not doing anything materially. How can you stop an army? Only an army can stop another army. You can't stop it by sanctions. You can't stop it by other things. So that's what is playing out there. And now comes that is where the beauty of 4G warfare is. When David is getting beaten up, he's one thing that he should not lose is his will to fight. So that is where there was the chief of ISIS in Baghdadi in 2015. He said, loss of Raqqa, loss of Mosul is not defeat. True defeat is losing the will to fight. You lose the will to fight, then you're lost. And Christine Fair, in her analysis of Pakistani strategic culture, she said the same thing. She said Pakistan army has got the same belief. They can lose any number of times to India on the battlefield, but they will never lose the will to fight. They will not lose the will to resist India. So that is the basic primary requirement of 4G warfare, the weaker person. Now, if Ukraine has to suck in, see, ultimately the end state. There is a military end state, they will achieve it very quickly. With the kind of preponderance of power they have, they will easily achieve it because overmatched adversaries. But the political end state is more tricky. Can Russia achieve that is the question. Because if they put a puppet government, there will be people rising up in revolt. That is where all the dirty tricks start coming in. Like this, it's a very important point you mentioned. Like, unlike the Afghan president who ran away, this fellow didn't run away. He's still there. And US offered to, today I saw a statement. He says US offered to take him out. He says, no, I don't want a safe ride. I want ammunition. So see, that is the thing. That he's captured it in one sentence. That is that the will to fight is there. So I don't think it is going to be so easy for Russia to get out of it. They have gone there to get out. If that same will to fight with the leader is demonstrating, if the rest of his Ukrainian, his army or the people, they demonstrate the same will, then you're going to find that it is not going to be so easy for Russia. So 4G warfare will actually start now. Once the military thing is done, when the political end state starts getting realized, that is when you'll find that 4G warfare will come in its own. That's where CIA will come, all this. And for 4G warfare, what do you need? You need transnational bases. So Romania is around. European Union is there. NATO. There are NATO countries bordering that. So from the alliance perspective, they'll use that as basis. That's what they did in Afghanistan. They like to defeat the Soviet Union. They used Pakistan as a base to carry out jihad in Afghanistan. So similarly, those transnational bases will be there. They will use terrorism. They will use espionage. They'll use cyber. They'll use all kinds of sabotage. They'll use everything. Because defeating is easy, but now how to hold on to it, I think that is where the challenge will come, and that's where I think we'll see actually 4G warfare, coming into its own.
Indeed, holding on is going to be quite a problem, and Ukraine is quite a proud country. So I think there is going to be some sort of a backlash to the Russians, which we can. I don't know if it's from this time or not, but I saw a video wherein these Ukrainians standing on a street were throwing Molotov cocktails on APCs, and the entire vehicle is on fire. So I mean, whatever said and done, it does create it won't have damaged too much because they're simple petrol bombs or something like that. They would burn and be done with it, but the entire mental impact of sitting inside a APC which is on fire does create a huge amount of impact on the soldiers as well. So within India, since the Chinese standoff has started, a lot of focus has gone on to countering the Chinese propaganda. There's a lot which is in India, which we can see today has been influenced from abroad. Not many incidents have happened, and they've been called out. There is no question. But the whole factor is that it initially, when these kind of stories happened, these incidents happened, it took about 2 or 3 months for people to realize the value of this additional aspect of warfare, wherein the minds of people are trying to the adversary is trying to kind of influence the minds of the people within the country. Why don't you tell us just a couple of examples that you've seen around, and they were rubbished, yes, and today I would say the maximum number of people politically, whichever way they might be aligned, but heart of heart, they know the reasons and they know what exactly happened. So why don't you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Okay. Yeah, it is actually a political minefield question that you asked me.
But yeah, I mean, of course, keeping the politics out of it, but we could always see that there is a narrative which is being built, and it always has a larger picture at the back end, sir.
Yeah. See, an ideal condition for this kind of a warfare, which is being played out daily. This is being played out daily on TV, on social media. Every person with a keyboard or a smartphone is a warrior, actually. So it is being played out daily. Okay. And so some of the conditions which are required are that the first thing is when a country has got, say, boundary issues with its neighbors. So tick mark for us. We have 2 boundary disputes going on, and both implacable, hostile, like Pakistan and China. So that is one. So there will always be people interested in breaking up issues. So that is you have hardcore adversaries or enemies, you can call them. Then the second thing, the factor in 4G warfare is the society itself within the country. What kind of a society we have? How united is it? How many fractures? What kind of fractures are run through the society? What are what are the people divided on what issues? So these are the things which are the societal factor itself. So India is again very ripe for that. We are divided by languages, we're divided by religion, by caste, we're divided by so many. There is also classes struggle. There's a leftist struggle, the rightist struggle. Everything is, India is like a melting pot for everything. So that is the second thing which is there, which we have. And this third thing is the humanitarian catastrophes when they happen. Then again, it is a very fertile playing field for inimical forces. Like a humanitarian catastrophe was like the COVID which took place. It was a thing, first wave, second wave, and look at the images which came out in the mostly the liberal newspapers of the West. And I read the New York Times on a daily basis, and I find there's not a single positive coverage when US themselves have 800,000 cases in a day, and we are done remarkably well considering the population, our health state, our infrastructure, everything. But not a single positive news story comes out from them. Instead, during the second wave, you have images of funeral pyres burning, and you have images of hospitals overcrowded and all that. But the actual truth was, it was bad, but not that bad. Okay, so that means, so what I'm trying to say is, who are the adversaries actually? So that is where you start questioning things. For instance, I'll say that on the 30th anniversary of the this thing, Israel, this thing, 30th anniversary of our relationship, diplomatic relations, we were celebrating it. That is the day New York Times, an article comes out that Pegasus was given to India. Pegasus is that anti-spying software. Was given to India as a quid pro quo, so that we voted against Shah, which is a Palestinian NGO. Okay, so this was, I mean, look at this. Look at the timing of it. And it's just before our monsoon, our parliament session. Just look at the timing of it. It is addressing so many. Now, who is doing this? So this is actually a warfare like this. And I saw another article. I'll not take names. January 26th, Republic Day of India. And there is a writer who normally writes humorous stories. Okay, below the editorial thing, his small piece comes, over 100 words or so. In that, he's saying he's talking about New York Times of piece on which a senator of the United States said that the stage is being set for genocide in India.
Yeah, I read that.
Okay, now look at all the factors which are coming together. I mean, genocide in India. And on your 26th of January, Republic Day, when people are proud of your nation, you're seeing your army is marching down Rajpath, and that is the thing that And Times of India is center of it is a balanced newspaper. It's not a panga taker like Indian Express or who keep doing anti-establishment stuff. But I was amazed to read this. Is that the timing of it? When you're feeling good about yourself, there is here somebody who's trying to make you feel bad about yourself. And that is the whole purpose of 4G war is that. Whole purpose of 4G war is to make you feel bad, to make you feel sorry, anything that you cherish, anything that you like. That is their aim. Okay, you are a nation for yoga. We had International Day of Yoga on June 21st every year, and yoga is associated with India. They said, okay, let us change the image. Yoga and chai. The toolkit expose was that. Let us change it. Okay, let us say it is a fascist government. It is a fascist government which hates its farmers. And who are the people, who are the pawns in this narrative are useful idiots. They're called in the military intelligence or intelligence parlance. They're called useful idiots. People, fired up people, liberals. These are the people who are passionate about causes, about climate and change and all that. But then they are being part of a narrative which is damaging to the image of the nation. So these are very dangerous portents which we must take note of. And then the another thing which I saw, one of the tweets was that one of the journalists, she says in a tweet, she says that the guys, the concept of India did not exist before January 26, 1950.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the context? The context is that that India's country because of the Constitution of India. The subtext is the present government is not interested in adhering to the Constitution. It is subverting the Constitution. So it is harking back to a glorious past which actually doesn't exist. And I found a brilliant retort to the tweet. The retort to the tweet was very good. It said that the person who retorted, he says when the British came to India in the 17th century, they called the company East of Burma and West of Afghanistan Company. Okay. So I think that just drove home the point. Like India is actually an ancient civilization. I mean, it is there. It's been there for ages together. Okay. And so the whole point that I'm making is, so who are our adversaries? And all these people, the Western media, the liberal media, the think tanks, your academics, any person I'll say who's making you feel bad about yourself is a potential adversary. I know I'm going to get a lot of kickback on this, but I think that is something which it sort of comes out. Look at United Kingdom also. We're supposed to be friends and all that, but all our fugitives are sitting there. Malia is every day is poking a snoop at you. Your Khalistan movement is run from there, and even during the Ukraine crisis, they sanctioned 3 billionaires and 5 banks. Whereas, as per the British themselves are saying, they said they have 100 of these oligarchs roaming around in Britain. Why did you sanction only 3? So United Kingdom itself is playing it's I don't know playing how many kinds of games. Earlier it was called Londonistan. Now somebody call it London Grad. It's got its finger, despite it is punching over its weight, but it's got its finger in all these pies. And most of our academics are liberals. They're all beholden to them, because if they don't churn out articles like that, they will not get a Nobel Prize. So that is where the I think the narratives come out. The point is, and within all this, if there are real issues, then there's a problem too. If the government is not governing well, so that again, so theoretically, the media should stand up and say, no, this is not correct and this is not right. So this is a very complex thing. So what you can see is this kind of war. It is a multi-pronged, multi-dimensional attack. Okay, and people, our enemies are having. I mean, they're having a ball. Pumping drugs into Punjab, or inciting movements here, there, the Northeast rebels, Kashmir, of course. So these are the things. So we are in a war. We need to realize that, and we need to acknowledge that, because if the war is for, it is the war, that is the war which is going on, is that for the soul of India. So that war has to be fought by all of us. Now the question is how to fight the war. It is very tough. It's very tough.
We need to have an organized effort. So as a matter of fact, I was reading yesterday when when the UN vote was supposed to happen on putting Russia down for the attack on, or the military operation that it's conducting within Ukraine. India and China abstained. China, everybody didn't say anything to, but India, see, that's trying to protect its own military supplies and this and that. So this is the kind of narrative that was coming out of the United States. This is the same United States who basically did not support us during the Chinese standoff. How many United Nations sessions were called? How many times was China condemned? How many statements were issued? How many countries actually provided military aid to India? No one. Not that we asked for it, but nobody did it. Why should we go out of our way? So when people are not going to this thing, so I think that's a clear message that India has also sent across, and we must, I think, do this more often. Another big message, and that has been actually been missed by the media, is the cancellation of the drones, the Predator $3 billion drones, which have just happened because of the discussion on Katsa, which has started again. So I guess there has been a little bit of a retaliation from India as well. So, but when we talk about the United States, the master of all warfare, the biggest military in the world, so-called, I mean, there's no question about it, largest air force, everything. And these guys are beaten up by a sandal-wearing, AK-47 carrying Taliban, with pretty much no organization. And the way we saw the American retreat out of Afghanistan was nothing short of a tail between the legs escape. There was no resistance that the Americans provided. There was no, counterattacks that were done. On 2 days, we heard B-52 raids. Beyond that, nothing happened. Did the Americans lose the will to fight in Afghanistan, sir? I mean, that's part of the fourth generation at the end of it.
Yeah, so see, they basically realize that they're in a losing proposition. The actual problem in Afghanistan is not Afghanistan. Problem is Pakistan. Okay, if you don't deal with Pakistan, how are you going to deal with Afghanistan? Okay, and Pakistan, because when they turned a blind eye to it, Pakistan got a nuclear weapon now, so he's throwing through fingers to everyone. Ukraine, I was just reading today, Ukraine would have been the third biggest nuclear power after the collapse of the Soviet Union. 600
weapons and some 2,000 tactical weapons and stuff like that.
Yeah, and on guarantees, false guarantees, they gave it up. Yeah. Okay, now tell me, if they had those weapons, would anybody have done anything to them? Okay, so we got to be very thankful to the fathers. For that, I'll always hold Nehru in very high regard, that he kept this atomic thing going. He started it at the right time. He kept it going. And Vajpayee bit the bullet and he weaponized. So that is something which will always be in our favor. That is something which, and with our armies, we'll be able to tackle it. Like I said, only an army can tackle another army. So Chinese army knows that. We are there to stop them. 4G warfare, so that is the territorial security. We'll fight it out. The territorial security, we'll fight it out with them. And they know that it's a good fight on hands. And if things go beyond hand, we also have nuclear weapons. So they know it can't escalate beyond a point. So territorial security, we are well okay with it. But we have to look at the other aspects of it, the economic security. We have to look at the technological security. We have to look at water security. You look at energy security. See, like Kashmir problem is what? It's basically water problem. Pakistan issue is Pakistan has got no love loss for Kashmir. His bigger worry is suppose his Punjab runs dry. We're already building a dam on the Chenab. Now, if you build a dam on the Jhelum also, he's finished. Okay, and as it is, other three rivers, as per the Indus Water Treaty, we are going to be using the balanced three rivers of the Punjab. So Kashmir, because both these rivers go through Jammu and through Kashmir, so that's why his worry is that. Similarly, our three rivers are coming from the Mansarovar region, Satluj, or the Brahmaputra, the Indus. They all start from the Mansarovar region of Tibet. So that is where we were short-sighted in letting it go so easily. Letting that Mansarovar, that entire region, that is feeding this entire, the Indian civilization is being fed from that. That's why, our rishis were not fools. They put Shiva there. Mount Kailash is kept there, is the abode of Shiva. So they put it, they said, this thing belongs to India. This belongs to the Indian civilization. That's why Shiva is there. And that's why they know all the water is coming from there. So that was the water security these people had thought of at that time. But we couldn't follow it up. At least Tibet should have been independent. We could not do it. Okay, so that water security aspect, the energy security, our biggest problem is what the petrol prices are going up now. So that means we have to work out alternate means of energy security. We have to get rid of it. We have to get into electrical vehicles. We have to get into other technologies. That is where the future is. The electric, because we know that in internal combustion engines, we can never reach them. You can't make good cars. German cars will always be better. So as far as internal combustion engines or the engine part is concerned, but electrical engines, there's no difference. We're all the same. So electrical technology is where you have to go, and that is where power is. Instead of don't need oil, we can self-generate. We have sufficient coal. So that energy security is something we have to look at very seriously. Similarly, technologically, like I said, electrical things, semiconductors, we require it very bad. Like we have waiting lists for cars because few dollar chips is not available. But now we are going in for, and we are making semiconductors going to be made in India. So that's a big thing. $40 billion or something is the investment, but that's a very good thing. So we are not going to be dependent. That's where sovereignty comes. Ultimately, this whole game of war is about sovereignty. Where are you really sovereign or no? If anything is dependent on anybody else, you're not actually sovereign. So right now, our data is also not sovereign. Our data sovereignty doesn't belong to us. It is elsewhere, lying elsewhere. Pegasus, the problem of Pegasus is that Pegasus would not have been needed in case the data was with us. Just like Facebook today, he's I think shut down all the Russian army websites. So just imagine a private company can do this. He can shut down a narrative of in a part of the social media. Okay, so that data sovereignty is something again which we have to look at very seriously. As far as our thrust is concerned, and all this like during the pandemic, any company which did well was anything like your sector, which is hospitality, did badly. But anything which like within the hospitality, the food business did very well, the snacks business did very well. So with China being an outcast, all the production lines have started coming to India now. And using IT and technology, the complete, Mondelez International, they shifted to India using Meta, augmented reality, virtual reality technologies. They shifted the entire production line without an engineer going on the floor. They got it uninstalled there and brought it back here, installed it during the pandemic, and the entire production line was shifted. So it shows that your technology is these are the technologies which we have to get hold of. Like quantum computing, artificial intelligence, this is the future. And to fight 4G war, also they're going to be very important. You're going to have, you require advanced intelligence connection techniques. Otherwise, intelligence has generally been a bugbear for us. Kargil, we never knew what's happening. They had come across 480 kilometers of this distance. And so many bunkers have been built, but we didn't know that time. So that the intelligence was lacking at that point. We didn't have intelligence in 65 war when they infiltrated completely. We didn't have intelligence. Even 71 war, Bangladesh, something was brewing up, March 71. We didn't know. So intelligence has been a bugbear. So as a nation, we have to look at revamping our intelligence structures, and we have to have a single point contact for intelligence also. Right now, there are too many agencies doing too many things, so we need to get hold of that, the intelligence part. I think as a strategy, that is a very important thing. And the next thing we have to look at is uh, if you want to do this thing, say if you want to if you want to be effective in fighting this war, it is a multi-pronged, multi-dimensional. NSA Ajit Doval had gone to the IPS academy in November last year, and he made a statement there. He said that 4G war is we are fighting it on a daily basis, and he told the police, cadets, he said, you people are the forefront of this battle of fighting the 4G war, because civil society has been weaponized. Okay. And so this, and immediately after that, 2 days after that, there was a counter from an ex-IAS officer. Okay, she has left the IAS. She was a batchmate, same batchmate, 1968 batchmate of Dole, and she had left this thing. She had left IAS, and she's heading an NGO, and she trashed whatever he said. She said, "How can you say we are the enemy? We are civil society. We are ensuring that you people do your job. You got a cabinet minister rank and all thing." He said, because of us that liberties are flourishing, because of us that so and so is happening. So that she countered like that. And there is a point to what she says, because there has to be a balance also. So she says, why are you saying civil society is the enemy? There are well-meaning people, there are patriots among the civil society also. So that's what she's saying. Why do you say this? So that is one. And the second counter was from an ex-vice chief of the army. Okay. So that counter was, he says, since when has police become responsible for national security? He says, leave it to the army. Okay. So the point I'm making is that 4G warfare is such a tough war to fight. That you have to be, it has to be, you have to get everything, because there are no centers of gravity. Actually, when you, like I said, in the Ukraine conflict, centers of gravity identified and they went for it. Here, which is the center of gravity? Where are you going for? You can't identify any center of gravity. So for that is why you need to identify what to go after, when to go after, how to go after. These are the issues to be answered by any of our strategists. So for that, the intelligence part is very important. Then you need structures for it. Like people say, theater command. Theater command is what? It is the third generation warfare. Theater command. That is joint Army Air Force Navy. But I say the time is gone. We are into fourth generation now warfare. Theater command is passe actually, because the jointness, it is not only jointness with them, among the three services, the jointness with all the organs of military power, of national power. That is what is so for that a structure. The best structure is already exists in the National Security Council. So that is a structure which has to be empowered, and it has to, like a fine symphony, it has to play all these organs, the diplomatic organ, it has to play that. It has to play the military thing when the time is required. Because India has to face all kinds of warfare. Indian situation is you have 2G warfare in the glacier. High altitude, nothing works. No technology works, so that is 2G complete. You have 3G warfare in the plains and in the deserts. And rest of the country, like Kashmir, is 4G warfare. Okay, and as an army, we have to have doctrine and tactics for fighting the fourth generation warfare, because that's how it works. If you're a 2G army, you can't fight a 3G war. If you're a 3G army, you can't fight a 4G war. So that is how it works. So you have to have, for instance, I'll say the Burhan Wani case in Kashmir. It's a classic instance of fourth generation warfare where we could have done better.
Oh yes, absolutely.
What had happened was that person, he had a social media profile. Okay, and the counter to it was jingoism. The counter to it was that okay, we'll sort him out within 1 month and all that stuff. That is that is not the way to fight this, because because he's a young kid. The kind of public support which came for him was tremendous, and that I think gave a fillip to the activities, the terrorism activities. So that is where that's why we have to be all organs of the state, the military included. Everybody has to be ready for fighting this 4G war. I'll say the simplest thing was erase him from social media. Why erase him physically? Or even if you erase him physically, you don't let his social media account continue. I'm just saying that's the way the war has to be fought in that manner. Okay, that it has to be fought through the social media and on that, in that perception management domain. Because by physically killing him and all, it was counterproductive. So all of us involved in this matter of national security have to look at it from a different perspective. So then with this, that's why I say which is the force structure should come up to fight this war. I'll say the US has already done it. That's a cyber command which they did. The cyber command ensured that the 2020 elections were not sabotaged. They take it as a big success. 2016 was when it was completely the Russians. What did the Russians do? It was 4G warfare. They told them, they said, okay, you're telling us about human rights, you're telling us about individual liberties. Okay, what do you cherish most? Your democracy. Okay, here is your democracy. They manipulated it. No, the elections came out. Whatever the elections came out, people had doubts over the results of the election. So they defeated the core, your core cherished principle of your existence, of your nation, which is democracy. They destroyed it by destroying the elections. So the cyber command came up in response to that. Similarly, what the Chinese have done with the SSF command which they have, the strategic support force. So in that they've got the cyber command, they got the electromagnetic domain, they got the your space. All these three together, they are So that's how the war is going to. Like even here, I was seeing that they started with the cyber attack, the Russians. But what happened really was the Ukrainians were not so well connected, So it was not that successful.
It didn't affect that much, yes.
It didn't affect that much because technologically it's unlike, like USA says, you carry out a cyber attack against me. He says my response is a nuclear strike. Okay, because he's so well connected. For him, it is going to be the end. Whereas here, still the ATMs were functioning, banks were functioning, fuel pumps were functioning. Things were still going on in Ukraine. So they're still going on. Because this Russian that cyber attacks won't affect them. And I can tell you, even in India, situation that way is pretty good. Like we have a manual backup for everything. That's what I have seen personally. So that way, your vulnerability is not that much as an advanced country like the US is there and all that. But we still need a cyber. That's why we talked about structure. They have to combine these three domains: the information domain, you have to combine the cyber domain, you have to combine the space domain, because that is how the war will pan out. You'll start with the cyber attack. That cyber attack, then you'll close down, and then moment you close down, they'll insert your saboteurs and special forces inside. They'll cut off all the fibers and the telecommunication networks which are inside the country. And then after that, they're going to be, anything which is radiating like microwave and all, they're going to jam that. So you're blinded within also. After this, the third step is, okay, you always say, okay, I have a satellite which I can always access it. So even the satellites they will knock down. Then you're completely isolated. And that is when the army moves in. When there's no decision making. Even if a person is there to make a decision, if he can't convey the decision, like the Ukrainian president, at least he's able to get his news out. So he's making decisions and he's conveying the decisions. Imagine if you're in a situation where you can't convey your decision. You made a decision, but you can't convey it. It doesn't reach the person. So that is what this will do. That is what SSF kind of a command will do. It will ensure that your decisions are not conveyed. And that will lead to low morale, and that's where the other narratives will come. Suddenly you'll get some picture, some BBC news will come. Okay, some video will come. Like you told me a video of people throwing Molotov cocktails. Some video will emerge from somewhere. It may be an old video, nobody knows. But that is enough to reduce the morale of people. So these are the things which we certainly need. My personal opinion, we need this. There are a lot of other viewpoints on this, but I personally feel we need this. And also, finally, our decision makers, we have to have that asymmetric, the thinking. Like David. We have to think like David. We think like Goliath all the time. We think we are bigger than Pakistan, so we sort them out. So Pakistan does some prick, okay, then we'll do something big. But it doesn't work that way. You have to start thinking like David. You have to start Machiavellian kind of you used to have that kind of an approach. Because since Pakistan is not your main foe is China. So you have to look at how to tackle that. So that is my thing. But we have to have that approach has to change. We are too straightforward in our approach. I mean, I don't know. I'm too small to actually, postulate that. But I feel that we can do more as far as the approach of, doing kind of unorthodox, unconventional kind of thinking.
Absolutely, sir. And especially it is important when one of our adversaries has a great firewall protecting itself from any disinformation coming into its own country. So it's a bit of a difficult challenge. I would actually put a little more emphasis. Uh, I mean, India has been successful in warding off offensives of this kind, but I think it's important for us to build up an offensive power in this domain. Of information operations or influence operations or sabotage, subversion, and so on and so forth. Because these are the things that are actually war fighting is so expensive today. Putin had to collect about $600 billion reserve before he actually opened up this very small conflict. If you actually look at it, the size of the war arena is very very little, and only 30% of the troops that had surrounded Ukraine have actually taken part in the operations till now. So that's a very small number. Out of 200,000, 30% is hardly anything. Uh, so it's a whole different game, and but Putin is hard. The Russians are actually attacking in terms of its psychological warfare quite heavily into Ukraine. They've the videos of Russians actually uh, doing exercises and this and that, I'm sure would have had its huge impact. So this has been an interesting discussion because we've covered quite a bit, as a matter of fact, the world around us and what is happening, especially, and you've brought out some very important points about what India must do, and that's something that I think decision makers should look at. There's no question about it because uh, going forward with a foe like China, yes, we've been rubbishing his propaganda. There's no question, but that's the civil society doing it. That's experts on their own steam doing it. I'm not sure if there is a government setup or the government system which is actually tracking down fake news as per se, and actually giving it back in sweet kind return. So that's something that a lot of us Indians actually, we all understand, and we all actually sometimes don't feel very good about the fact that we are not able to actually give back in the same taste as we received. One of the things I think that cheesed off a lot of us was that silly little Galwan video that the Chinese had put out with these actors, acting like soldiers and this and that. It got rubbished, yes, but I think a lot of us did not like that. I personally didn't. I would have appreciated from our end putting out a video first. Uh, a lot of the, and I'm going to say this with all regards, there's a certain thought process which stops us from actually beating our own horn, if I may put it that way. So I think that's something that needs to be changed. Sir, thanks so much once again for the preparation that you've done. And I think that was a very insightful paper that you had sent me to read and that we've discussed here. Um, till next time, sir, another subject, another day. Jai Hind, sir.
Thanks, Adi, and all the best to you and your channel.
Thank you, sir.